This is Chapter 3, which looks at how to search for articles within the library that relate to your key terms. I don't know how many of you have actually checked out a book or used an online database before within the library, but that's something that we'll learn how to do in this class. The great part about everything is, besides checking out a book, any articles that you find, you should be able to just find them online through the online library database system and also through Google Scholar. So whenever I was completing my dissertation, I actually lived in Midland, and so all of my books and all of my articles I would get through Interlibrary Loan, and they would always send them to me in the mail, or they would send me an email with an article. So if you end up having to order any articles online, they will actually send them to you through Interlibrary Loan through an email. And before you watch this presentation, you might want to go through and read through the lecture that's the library presentation, and then look through the handout that's also from the library presentation from Cynthia Henry. She actually works at the library and works with our department. So if you have any questions about how to find anything, please email her or give her a call, and she will help you in any way possible. You can set up a meeting with her if you have any questions, or you can also come to me with any questions. So to be able to do our literature review and our library search, we first are going to have to identify our key terms, because they are what we will use to find other research articles similar to our topic. And key terms are the main ideas of the topic that you want to investigate. And as we kind of have already talked about, key terms are definitely used in the title. Usually they're listed after the abstract. They're usually listed in the purpose of the paper, and the hypothesis usually have to do with the key terms. And as we also talked about, a lot of times definitions are created for each key term, just so we know exactly, it's clarified by the author exactly what they're talking about for each term. Also, when you go to do your library search, you'll want to search the literature for alternative terms for your key terms. So an example of this would be, you're going to look at Generation Y consumers. Well, Generation Y consumers are also called millennials and baby boomlets. So those are different words that you would want to look up when you're doing your literature review search, because some researcher may have done research on Generation Y, but they may have called them millennials. So unless you type in millennials, that article may not pull up. Another example would be if you want to study shoes, like if you want to look at what type of shoes Generation Y likes to purchase, or the purchase behavior for a certain type of shoe. Well, sometimes it's either called shoes or footwear, so it could be called two different things. So you want to look at synonyms and try to put those in to help you find even more information than what you would do with your basic search. When looking at fashion design and retailing, it's really an interdisciplinary field, and that's because when you study certain topics, you will either use psychology or sociology. And many consumer behavior theories that are used in retailing originated from psychology. So, for example, if you want to study buying behavior of consumers or how color affects consumers, you would want to go look at psychology. So, with the theory of planned behavior that I used with my dissertation, it is a psychological theory that began in psychology, and that's one thing you'd want to talk about is, like, where did this theory originally come from? Did it come from psychology? Where was it made up? Did it come from marketing? A lot of things come from marketing within our field. And if you wanted to look at how peer pressure affects what college students wear, that would be a theory that would be rooted in sociology. So that's just kind of gives you an explanation of how different things either tend to be on the psychology or sociology side of things. And then also textiles looks at the science side of things. So you may find things that are more scientific about how do you develop certain types of fabrics. And then there's the art side of textiles, and how do you develop more artistic types of textiles. And then when you look at retailing, you have the merchandising side of retailing, but you also have the business side that looks at the buying, the marketing, all those different things besides just the merchandising side of things. So there's just a large span of different things that you can actually look at in fashion design and retailing to study. Next is mind mapping, and mind mapping is used to think about your topic and think of all the aspects of your topic or possible key terms for your topic. So example that's on the slide is if you looked at jeans, some different things that you could look at is you could look at the production of jeans, the color, the fabric, the silhouette, the history of jeans, and just kind of see how that plays into different types of research articles that you could come with. So example, you could look at different types of fabric and how different types of fabric is used. You could also look at production, and even within production, you could look as far as how doing certain types of washes on jeans, such as stone wash, is bad for the environment because of all the chemicals that go into the water, and how most of your jean production is not done in the US just because it's so damaging to the environment. And then you could look at how silhouettes have changed over the years. And even with jeans, when you're talking, if it's one of your key terms, you might want to talk about the history of jeans and where it all started. Next is primary and secondary sources. And a primary source is what we're doing because we're doing new research, and it is written by the person who's conducting the research. Secondary research is where you look over older research using someone else's data. So an example of this of secondary research would be if you took census data and then you did a study using that data that someone else had collected. So you didn't actually collect the data, but you did analyze it. That would be secondary research. And another term to know is peer-reviewed articles, and you will need 5 peer-reviewed articles for your paper. And you can get as many non-peer-reviewed articles that you want, and you will probably get more than 5 peer-reviewed articles. And however, if your topic is something that does not have a lot of peer-reviewed articles, then we'll have to add a little something to your topic, so you will be able to find some peer-reviewed articles. We'll talk about some different ways to find peer-reviewed articles because you can find them through the library system, but we'll also talk about how to find them through Google Scholar. Next is the slide of the Library of Congress classification, and that is just the system of call numbers, and it's a series of numbers and letters which are used to arrange books by different subject areas and where they're arranged on shelves. And most of the books in our area of study are HF. So if you went to the stacks, most of the books you would find would be in the HF section. You probably will not look at books at all for this research project, but when you're doing a dissertation or a thesis, this is definitely something you would have to go to the stacks and learn how to use the classifying system. Next is the Online Public Access Catalog. And this is the online ordering database with other libraries. And Texas Tech has this, and what we call it is interlibrary loan. And this is where if you find an article that we don't have, then you can go to interlibrary loan and enter that article in, and then they will email you that article within a few days. You can also do it for books. So this is just a system available to help you find articles that we may not have on file within our system. And periodical indexes are the different types of journals that are used, and we have different databases that we use within our area. We'll use EBSCOhost, First Search, and LexisNexis Academic Universe. Those are some of the main databases that are used that have these specific periodicals within them. And everything, even if it says that you could go find them in the library, everything will be electronic. The general periodical indexes would be your more popular magazines that are not peer-reviewed, which would be like Time, Fortune, and Business Week. And these are still great articles to use, and you can find good information. Like you might find information about why is the apparel industry a viable industry, because it may give you the amount of sales for the year in apparel. So these are still good articles to have and that you will probably need to be able to find. Our next side is periodical holdings, and these are in the base bit, and this is where you can actually go pull those general periodicals magazines. However, you will not need to go to the basement. You will just be able to get them all online. Unfortunately, when I completed my undergrad, you actually, before the library system was really good, you actually did have to go to the basement and find those articles and make copies of them so you could have them for your paper that you were writing. Looking at when you go to do your computer searches to look for articles, you want to keep track of the addresses and databases that you use the most, and you want to make sure and copy the address from the browser and paste it directly to your reference page, because some links disappear, and so you need to copy the address right when you find it and date it to be safe in case you can't find it later. So this will not be if you're using a peer-reviewed article, but say you find a really good article that's just out there online. Your reference, what you're going to have to use is the actual web address to that article, and you also need to have the date for that article. And so when you find that type of article, you want to make sure and copy and paste that into your references right away, because sometimes articles will move around where they originally were and you won't be able to find them. So you want to go find that and come back and keep it as long as possible. If you go into a search through the library database or even through Google Scholar, it will a lot of times give you your citation. It'll give you all your information, and you'll be able to save the PDF. So you just want to make sure that you're putting all of those references in. I would save them, just make a file that says references, and I would put the citations or bibliographies right in there as soon as you find one that you think is viable that you're going to use. And that way you'll have them and you don't have to go back and handwrite them out or find them, and it'll just save you time. Next are newspaper indexes, and there may be a few times when you actually find something online that's from a newspaper, so you'll just want to reference that correctly. And it's talking about there are different places that you can go look at newspaper indexes, but you'll just be doing everything online, and the odds of you actually using a newspaper are not very high, so I wouldn't focus too much on those. Next is evaluation of your sources, and it is best to avoid databases that are not academic. However, online encyclopedias, especially for dictionaries, are totally fine. So even though the book says they're inappropriate, as this slide says, they are totally fine to use. Don't worry about those. Mainly, you will find most of your sources through Google Scholar and through the different databases through the library system. And as long as you use that, you'll be able to find all of the articles that you need that will be good sources that are viable. Next, organizing and taking notes is actually a lot more important than you would think. And there's a lot of different methods, and the book talks about different methods that you could use. But really what you want to do is you just need to stay organized. You don't want to lose your articles or lose citations and not be able to go back and find them. So the big thing I would do is each article that you find that you think is really good, I would save it. And if you've already been through the article and you know it goes with a certain key term, then I would save it to a folder with that key term. Same thing as if you print articles, print them, and then determine which key term they go with, and then put them in a folder for that key term. And then that way you can it'll make it way easier when you're doing your lit review where you do it kind of by key term, because you'll have a folder for each key term and have articles that relate to that key term. And then along with this, on the organizing part of it, is I would go ahead and when you're doing everything, I would take every reference and go ahead, if it has the bibliographic reference listed in your article when you're looking at it online, copy and paste it into your reference page. So you can just start having those ahead of time. And then one other thing that you want to do when you're when you're taking your notes is, if you may have an article that will have more than one key term, so highlight those different sections and then just write out to the side what key terms, and then at the top you may put key terms and then list the key terms that it goes with. So just take really good notes when you're reading through your article too, kind of like the FRAF. The FRAF really that you just did is helping you learn what to look for in an article, and then how I highlighted it and made a little note of what it was. That's kind of something you might want to do too, is highlight it and say which key term it goes with, and then that way it'll be easy for you to go back and look through those articles and find information quickly.